Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. On the agenda tonight, we're going back to 2005. We're going to be taking a look at Cream from the Royal Albert Hall and they're going to be playing through Sunshine of Your Love. So let's get these guys up on screen and see how they get on.
It's getting me dark when I close your tired eyes. To be with you, my love, to give you my dawn surprise. And you can love it soon. If you when the stars start falling. I've been waiting so long to be where I'm going, in the sunshine of your love. I'm with you, my love. The light shining through one of you. Yes, I'm with you, my love. The morning just won't do. Stay with you, darling, now. Stay with you till my seas are grown tighter. I've been waiting so long to be where I'm going, in the sunshine of your love. Sunshine.
I'm just going to jump in here because we've got a lot to talk about so far. Just in terms of Sunshine of Your Love as a track, when you really do break it down and you get into it, there isn't a lot to it in terms of just a three-piece as well, and being able to pull this kind of performance off live 37 years after it was originally recorded. And even when we're looking at Ginger Baker, in terms of those drums, because it is such a unique way to drum is probably the opposite of how a drummer would start to play when you're making a song, and you start with a standard 4/4 beat, and you have your snare on 2 and your snare on 4, and that is it. But the way that Ginger Baker just absolutely throws it down on the toms, and it's putting that emphasis on 1 and 3. Again, it's the case of having a drummer who thinks outside the box, or doesn't think outside the box. He is outside the box with just the way that he plays. To sound like yourself, especially on the drums, is something that I've mentioned before. You haven't got the luxury of melody and notes to get a particular sound, a particular style, but on the drum kit, Ginger Baker is certainly one of a kind. And what's great about this performance is the overall vibe, because it's so relaxed. It's just like 3 guys just jamming up on stage together. And especially in that first verse where we have Jack Bruce who comes in with a vocal, and then Eric, I think, is supposed to take that second verse, but maybe he was a bit late with the vocal, so then Jack tried to come in with the vocal, but then Eric leaves it to Jack because Jack's already come in. Unfortunately, these are the kind of things nowadays that you don't see a lot of because of the tendency for bands to be playing to backing tracks. But it's great to just see these little musical interactions between top musicians and how they deal with it, because we've all been there where we've seen bands who are playing and somebody sings at the wrong time. It totally throws everybody off, and then they have to start the song again. But absolutely none of it with top professionals, and it's just great to see. And a lot of people will know the performance by Jimi Hendrix on the Lulu show when he just jumps into Sunshine of Your Love. It's a bit more of an up-tempo version, but this track has a lot to thank Jimi Hendrix for, because Eric and Jack were at a Jimi Hendrix gig, and Eric said that it was the first time that Jack had ever really seen Hendrix in terms of a full show, and he really left that show inspired, and he went home and he wrote this riff. So then when he brought this riff into the studio, then Eric and Ginger then got together and started to make a whole song out of it. Before I get into looking at Eric's technique and the way that he plays, just a mention of his voice as well, because this is a guy who in Rolling Stone magazines listed as number 2 in terms of the top 100 players kind of ever, and also in the Gibson chart where I think they list the top 50, he's in at number 4. So this guy is seen as one of the top guitarists of all time. But let's just put into the equation that he is a vocalist as well. And a lot of people forget how difficult it is to sing and play at the same time, but also to sing in tune, to sell a melody with your vocal cords, because there are so many guitarists that don't sing at all. They spend their whole time just playing the instrument and don't spend any time singing or doing any vocal practice. So therefore, they've got so much more time to dedicate to that instrument. So once you break it down and see that actually Eric is doing 2 things, and just diving into Eric Clapton's playing, I did reference the nickname of slow hand earlier, and if there's one technique that Eric Clapton absolutely has down, if you've been watching this channel for any length of time, you know what I'm about to say. It is vibrato, the control of vibrato. And he's not one of these players that is going to play super fast. Of course, he's got fast techniques that he can throw in there in order to make the playing more interesting, but he can make a note sing just all night because of that control. And what does always interest me about Eric's technique within his vibrato is the way that his hand is totally independent of the guitar neck. And if you watch it, you can rewind it on this video, but just watch his playing at any point. You'll see that when he ends on a note, his whole hand shifts up and down, and the neck is stationary. And it does look unique the way that Eric does it, because there's no angle in that wrist. It's just all really square on to the fretboard. And you will see a lot of players who, when they do rotate that wrist, of course, it means that their starting position is angled against the guitar. So when they then fret a note and rotate their hand, that's going to push the string up and down, or they might be pinching down and pushing up, and that's going to create the vibrato. It just goes to show that there isn't one way way of doing it. Everyone doesn't do it like Eric Clapton, and there will certainly be other guitarists in the top 10 list, top 50, top 100, who vibrato totally differently. And that is just finding your own way of doing it in order to get your own expression. And that's the most important thing. Everybody develops their own vibrato and actually their own style to sound how they want to sound. Guys who will say that Eric isn't very good, and you get some guys that will say that Eric is God. And that is the whole point, that when you're a player yourself, you play what you like the sound of. And if somebody says they don't like the sound of it, it doesn't matter, because you're playing how you like to sound. And there will be people that do like it. The most important thing is just being your own artist, just liking what you do, because then that's it solved. You're never, ever trying to please everybody. If you are, then you're on a road to nowhere, because it is impossible. And just about Eric's tone, because he's on that neck pickup here, so he's going to be getting that softer, mellower sound when you compare it to that bridge pickup. But of course, on the track, that's what this song is all about. That's what the solo is all about. That neck pickup gives such a distinctive sound. And if you don't know about guitars, the neck pickup, basically, in layman's terms, is going to give you more emphasis on the bass notes. So it's cutting off all of those high frequency notes that really pierce your ears. And when you get to the bridge pickup, that means that it's really now accentuating all those really high trebly tones. So you'll get a cutting, biting lead solo sound. So you have those two different places that you can go to. You've also got the middle pickup, which of course is in the middle. So if you want a balance between those two. I don't want to get too much into the technical aspects of the pickups, but just to say that the bridge pickup with that really trebly sound, if you go all the way to the neck pickup, is the most dramatic tonal change that you can make on your guitar with reference to those pickups. I'm not going to have time to check out this whole video, but we'll jump in just for a little bit more. just going to jump in here. I'm going to put the link to this whole video in the description so you can check it out if you want to without me interrupting it. But I just want to jump in just to mention, of course, about Jack Bruce playing bass here on that fretless bass. So it means that you're very much going on the feel. Obviously, you have the markings on the side of the guitar, but you don't have those convenient frets in order to always jump to pitch. So you're going to get so many incidental, potentially sharp and flat notes because of the fact you haven't got those frets. So really difficult way to play bass here on that fretless. You've really got to have your wits about you in order to get perfect pitch all the time. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, it is just like three mates jamming on stage. They're just taking it wherever they want to. And the way that Eric throws together the lead on the original track, but also here, and very much in his style of blending that major scale with the blues scale. And especially in the first solo, we had a good example of that, where he does totally break off into that major pentatonic scale and then straight back into blues. But it gives such a dramatic effect because it really does play with your ear, and that's something that Eric is great at doing. And just quickly about this track when it was released in 1968, because initially in the chart in January it got to number 36 and then drifted away, but then it re-entered the chart in July and got to number 5. And it's funny how some of the big hits of yesteryear went into the charts and there wasn't that much of a fanfare about those particular tracks, but then sometimes even years later, it enters the public's consciousness and people really get a hold of the track and it just does really well. And that was the case with Sunshine of Your Love. Of course, the harmony vocals, which I haven't mentioned in this video up till now, vocally it's still absolutely solid. The harmonies are spot on. The expression in the vocal, the control. But thank you so much for suggesting this video for me to take a look at, and keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And I'll see you guys at the next one.